always like to whistle. Friday afternoon, 3:30 here at 2160 Net. The whistling ukulele can only mean one thing. It's Ask a Bookkeeper. Stephanie Conley from Steph's Books. Of course, the whole premise of the show is to ask a bookkeeper. Of course, we've got a special guest today. I'll let you do the introductions, but it's all yours. Part 2. 3. This is part 3?
Yeah.
Of year-end review, ready to go into 2021.
So we decided to do a 3-part series of like a new year, new you thing for your business and your books and all that fun stuff. So the first segment, we covered some tips and tricks on how to do some quick cleanup and get that going so you're ready for tax season around the corner. And then last show, we did being true to your numbers and not mix and mingling business and personal, and being able to utilize that data for your KPIs and all that fun stuff. But I'm sure you guys all tuned in since it was such a hot topic. And now we're on to the last segment, which is automation and kind of speeding up your business policies and procedures. So I invited Rich Conley to the studio. He is going to be representing as a general manager for a swimming pool company that he works for. So he's not representing Steph's Books. So he's going to talk about things from a management perspective and implementation, and I'm going to talk about things from a bookkeeper perspective.
Yeah, and of course, it's a special day today.
Yes.
It's the last Friday before Thanksgiving.
And it's also Rich's birthday.
So look at that. That's
everybody out on Facebook, give
that?
him a little cheers and a happy birthday.
And of course, we here at 2160 Net graced him with a beautiful Pabst Blue Ribbon tall boy for his birthday. And it tastes as bad as any other Pabst Blue Ribbon you've ever had.
Yep. Same taste for the past 30 years. Like dirty old socks.
That's right. It's bad. That's right.
So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or talk a little bit about that, about your background, or if you want to just get started with the fun of the automations.
Yeah, so I'm a general manager for a swimming pool company. We have right around 60 employees that we employ. We're a seasonal business. I've been doing this position for probably about 5 years now. And in those 5 years, we've gone through several different softwares and implementations, trying to figure out what the right fit for the company was. I think primarily today, I'll probably have the most expertise in T-sheets. So when we get to that, I'll probably jump in a lot on that one. But I'm also a part owner of Steph's Books, but not today.
So we got Christine Ditzler from Restoration One wishes you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
On Facebook.
Long time no see, Christine. How are you?
So, all right. So let's dive into T-Sheets. So T-Sheets is a software that's used for time tracking that also integrates with QuickBooks, which, integrates with not only their payroll platform of QuickBooks, but also their job costing platform. So with that, it is super nice because it's a dual feature. Christine uses T-Sheets, so that's good. And Michelle Mines from Clean Bee wishes you a happy birthday.
Rutch.
Thanks, Michelle.
You got a Rutch.
So I know 5 years ago when you came on at the swimming pool company, Rich, they were using a old school time clock punch. Yes. Where they had the little yellow cards or white cards, and then they go to the little time clock, and then you had to sit there and manually add up the times, deduct the lunches, and all of that. And so on average, to do 60 employees, how long do you think that was taking you?
A couple hours.
So, and did you find that sometimes if you were doing it, let's say late in the evening, your issue would kind of, like there was a potential for human error, like maybe with the...
Yeah, sometimes you just want to go home, right?
With the addition or the subtraction in there. So one of the things that you guys were able to implement is T-Sheets. Mm-hmm. So how did T-Sheets kind of help your business and save you some time on that end of things? And how was it implementing with 60 people to try and get these guys who've been doing it one way for 10 plus years to now get them to do this other way?
I think the most important thing that you need to figure out when you're doing any software implementation is figuring out what problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so we went through our pain points of what we had. And by far, the number one problem we had was accountability to people's time card. Because our hours in the office, we would want to lock up the warehouse at 5 o'clock, but our guys would be working 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. They come home, they come into the warehouse the next day, look at their time card, write in their time. They'd be like, what time did we get off? I don't know. And it would just be, it was very loose, and there wasn't a lot of accountability to people's time and what we were paying people for. So what we did to solve that, which just added more time, is that what we would do is we would compare all of their time cards against the GPS. And so we'd go, which just added time because you'd have to review every single time card, which is something we still do, but it's much faster in T-Sheets to do that. So we would go through it, see who was working with who, making sure their time cards match up, make sure it matched up with the GPS. And one part I really hated about it is that we would change their time cards to match the GPS. Like they would come in, we'd probably give them about 10 minutes to clean out their truck, and whatever that time was is what we would put on their time cards. And I really didn't like touching anybody's time card. So coming into T-Sheets, for one, it gave them the ability to clock out when they were done, because they didn't have that ability because they would have to come back to the warehouse and clock out. 2, we were paying people just to drive all the way back to the warehouse at certain times of the day when the office was open to clock out. Like when they could just clock out with their job, take their truck home and go home. So that was a couple things that we were trying to solve in there. 2, it has a GPS feature built into it. Now it's not like I can't remember the interval that it tracks, but it'll take a snapshot of where everybody's at every, 15 minutes. So it's not a super accurate point of GPS, but you'll get the gist of when somebody stopped at the job and when they started moving again. And that really helped us to confirm that, like, all right, this is with their last job. This is when they clocked out. Everything matches up. All right, now we can say this is what we're going to pay them. After that, we also came into a couple problems that I caught when I let somebody else add up the time cards. They weren't adding them up correctly. Okay. There was probably about 6 weeks straight, and obviously my fault, but where they paid a guy 10 hours extra because the guy was adding instead of subtracting. All right. And he really wasn't doing his math correctly. And so once I caught that, I'm like, this sucks. So that was just one more reason why we really needed to get off of manual entry time cards, manually adding up time cards, especially manually adding up time cards, and get onto something that's a little bit more automated and a little bit more streamlined for what we were trying to accomplish as a company. So those are 2 of the main pain points that T-Sheet solved, on top of all of everything that it did solve in terms of getting accurate time cards accurately added up and giving the ability for guys to clock out once they were done with the job. Was they just liked it. Like everybody loved it. It was easier.
Yeah.
Like people didn't have to sit there and clock in the time cards. As soon as they got in, they press a button on their phone. It tells them their hours up. They don't have to add up their time card. People like to know how many hours they've worked. And it's much simpler and cleaner. And now that's in the field. On the back end of everything, there's an approval process. So when we go through and we hand off the time cards to the manager to go through the time cards, approve them, say that this is what the guys worked, it goes right into QuickBooks. So a process of manually entering a time card isn't that much, about 30 minutes probably, to manually enter in somebody's time card. Once you've added up all the hours and you have the correct time card, was now literally a minute. Like you click the button, open up QuickBooks, all the hours are in there.
So while Rich was talking about the approval process and T-Sheets, I have T-Sheets pulled up. This is the T-Sheets for our company, but I don't really log my time in here very well, obviously. So
Just the beginning.
We just use
of the week.
something else. We just don't use T-Sheets for it. Yeah.
So this is the desktop, how it's going to look when you log in. And I could go to time clock. I have all of my clients in there. And then when you go to the approval process, I could do it by week, by pay period. I can view the details, and then I could add time, edit time. I could select, if I worked 10 hours in a day, I could select, 3 hours for this client, 2 hours for this client, which is something that's very helpful in the construction space or any, I guess, like professional services also where you bill by the hour.
And huge for even smaller. I mean, you've got a pretty
Right.
good number of employees, but if you only had like 3 or 4 employees and you're out in the field yourself,
it's still worth it.
yeah,
Right. Because time.
right.
is money,
Now you
right?
don't have to all kind of try
Right.
to, let's wrap up and meet here so I can get you punched in or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
And I felt for a long while we were saving pennies to lose dollars. Like everybody's arguing
Sure.
about costs, and it's so minimal, but it's like, oh God, it's so easy just to add up time cards, and I'm already paying you to be here. Well, I can be doing something else right now,
Right.
like I don't have to be
Right.
doing this right now. So, and then a couple other things that are nice about that, and on the highest level of licensing on T-Sheets, they have geofencing. So if you do everything in QuickBooks and import all your customers into T-Sheets, when they arrive at location, it'll say they arrived at location on their time card, and it'll track that time for when they're there and when they leave, which is very useful for if you're in a
That's
job
huge.
costing scenario,
Yeah.
or even a billing scenario. If you just want to know, like if you're billing by the hour, then you want to know how long people were there.
Yeah.
So
That's
it
cool.
really helps in that sense. And it also has a scheduling feature, which is something we don't really use, but depending on your business, it may become very useful to use the scheduling feature that's in there.
That's cool.
So
So that's kind of T-Sheets in a nutshell. So all the team members can put the app on their phone. They don't need to have a laptop, tablet, desktop. They can have the app on their phone, and they could clock in and clock out through there. And then once you, as the manager, go through and approve the time, you could either have it automatically synced with your QuickBooks and it will port over, or you hit the button and it will export it over there to your QuickBooks.
you can click it.
No. And then you could run payroll from there, and you can do that. So that's one of the automation features that I super love, and I recommend for my clients to use as well.
And this saves huge time too for end of year stuff, right?
Mhm.
And if God forbid you have to let somebody go or whatever,
Mhm.
they for unemployment or whatever,
Right.
I imagine.
And some of the problem that you have in QuickBooks is that they take the bulk number, so they take like it's regular time overtime, 40 hours of regular time, 15 hours of overtime, but you don't know what their hours were per day.
Right.
So if you want to get which you would have to go back and review their time card for, unless you're putting in these what do they call them? QuickBooks, the timesheets for people to enter in. So they could keep a daily, which is you're going to have a hard time getting a service company to get that done. A professional services company probably works for, but as people out in a truck, you're never going to get people to do that.
Yeah.
So basically what that happens is if you want to go back and review, if you ever want to look at historical data, T-Sheets runs a lot of good reports on a daily, monthly, whatever
That's cool.
interval you want to do to look at the hours that guys were working.
In T-Sheets also, can't you put clock in, clock out parameters as well? So you get an alert if someone's outside parameters?
Yeah. So if the guys let's say like our clock in time's 6 o'clock. All right. I have a notification that texts them that says at 6:05, please clock in if they're not clocked in.
Wow.
So because sometimes guys come in, they forget to clock in and then whatever.
Busy loading the truck, whatever. Yeah.
Right. And so and then you can also put an end date. So if guys if you have a hard stop for some of your guys, for like your office staff, you have a hard stop, if they're not clocked out by 5 o'clock, you can send a text message to them, please remember
So
to clock out.
if you're running a construction company and you can't start until 8:30 on site or whatever because of the neighborhood or whatever, that's your hard log in at that point.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, because there's some guys that will sit there and they'll come in at 5:45, clock in and sit in their truck and be like, I was here at 5:45.
Yeah.
And then 15 across how many guys, it becomes a number.
Yeah.
It becomes a number that, you're really not paying anybody to do anything except for
Right.
you to show up early, which we don't need you here at this. So
that's that one. So I'm going to move on to the next fun one, which is Expensify, which is another in-field app that integrates with QuickBooks. So I'm sure you guys are going to see a theme where everything I'm talking about integrates back with QuickBooks.
And again, if you have questions, go ahead and ask a bookkeeper.
Yeah, anybody with questions can just please feel free. And Tim Santos with Health Market says happy birthday.
Oh.
And Jemima with Liberty Oak Plumbing says happy birthday also. So
That's
I feel like we're going to get a lot of happy birthday.
thank you.
You can send your checks to Steph's Books. Birthday cards to Steph's Bookkeeping.
So Expensify is another really nice app for receipt tracking and also some expense management. So I have a few of my friends / employee or clients have where they're out in the field. And if they're out and they take, I don't know, they need to buy some office supplies while they're out. And so they are taking pictures on their cell phone, but it's just a picture on their cell phone. And then they email them to their payroll department or management department to get the approval. Well, Expensify will make everything a lot quicker and nicer and integrate where I could be out in the field, have the app on my phone. I could take a picture and I could specify, is this billable to client? Is it a company expense? Is it reimbursable to me as an employee? And you could also log time in there as well, right? If you're out in the field. So this app kind of gives you the best of both worlds as for time tracking and expense management in the aspect of receipts.
I think also, I think one thing that's kind of not understood about Expensify is how big that program is. It's an enormous program, and it can be as simple or as complicated as you make it. You can make it so that when somebody submits an expense report, you can have it auto reimburse them, or it automatically debits their bank account. If it's a credit card, you can have your own. It does an auto reconciliation on the credit cards if you hand out company credit cards versus their expenses that they submitted. So it's a really, really big program. It's not just taking a picture of a receipt and it going into QuickBooks. I mean, it's for companies that do serious expense tracking or very simple expense tracking. It's however big you want it to be. So.
Yeah, because I know that when you've used Expensify for our business and taken a picture of the receipt and pulled it in, and then when the transaction comes in on the credit card, it alerts me that there's a match.
Yep.
And it lets me know
it auto
that,
reconciles,
that you've had this receipt, and then it will attach your receipt to the expense from the bank.
Yeah, and it'll also, like, if you need to put it against a project, it'll import all your projects. I love it. And if you put an expense in, it'll prompt you, all right, what project is this for? What phase is this for? It can go pretty detailed and how you want to track your expenses. But what was the other thing what were you just saying before you?
About the receipts, there's time tracking in here. There's reimbursements. You could do a 2-step approval process. So
yeah, the approval process is really
can
nice.
Always approve.
Yeah.
The expenses and the time. You can kick it back.
The other thing is that when you have a couple different options. You can take a picture or you can email a receipt in, but it also will pull out all the information on the receipt. As long as your receipt's not in bad shape, it's pretty good at capturing all your expense information. So if there's a date, amount, invoice number, it'll pretty much auto capture that information and create the file inside of Expensify, and you just review it to make sure it's correct. So it really cuts down on the data entry.
Wow, yeah.
So this is really good, especially for somebody like Christine, who is out in the field, and if she's out on job, and we know that she runs into all sorts of weird stuff, and receipts can likely get destroyed in her line of work.
Yeah.
That this could be good because they could do some real time pictures before it makes it into the truck.
I mean, if you're a 1099 employee,
right? If you have contractors, this is perfect for. If you have employees that travel a lot, have a lot of travel expenses, it's perfect. If you have a sales team, and sales teams out there doing whatever they have to do with vendors, and
whatever.
It's perfect for them. If they have expenses that they need to be reimbursed for.
I could have put the Pabst Blue Ribbon on.
Right. Well, I was wanting to do that, but
I jumped the gun. I apologize. I didn't read the script. I'm sorry.
So, but yeah, so through here, receipt tracking, time tracking, reimbursements, billable to client, not billable to client. There's so many things that you could do with Expensify. And what does Christine say? It works great for the boys from job to job, plus if we need additional material. Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm not quite sure what business she's in with the boys.
We're a little loose with the boys.
It must be a scout leader. I don't.
So, but yeah, again, like most of these apps and things that we're going to be showing you guys and demoing, they're fairly inexpensive, especially when you look at the time savings versus the cost of the app or the software.
Yeah,
And,
you really don't want to
Yeah.
pinch pennies when it comes to stuff like that, because you'll I don't know. I've seen people argue over a $10 a month license. Like, what's $10? You know, what's $10 for some of your time back to go do something else? Whether it's productivity or just sanity. You know what I mean? Like you can get some sanity back by not having to do some repetitive process, or you get some time back to go do something that's really productive. You know, depending on the scope of the work. So,
well, from a management perspective, I feel like when you implemented some of these softwares into the business where you work, you then now were able to dive in deeper to the sales matrices and put together programs for your teams and your guys to then, get bonus structures or get the next steps, because you were able to really utilize your time.
you also get more
properly.
real-time information, and it's more accurate. You know, that those are two things whenever you're trying to do any kind of dashboard, any kind of reporting, present any kind of financial information to anybody. It's, one, how accurate is the data? Two, how is it how relevant is it to the time period right now? So like having that information right away is really, really helpful.
Christine just wanted to say you guys are dorks.
No, my mom says happy birthday.
Thank you.
So
Actually, she said she yelled it at us.
it's all capitals.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming from Arizona or whatever, but okay.
So how much time we got left? Well, like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, fill it up,
So,
sister.
Okay, so another one that I wanted to also kind of touch base on was Bill.com, but I don't really know. For Bill.com, I have kind of mixed feelings on it now, considering that it fully integrated with QuickBooks. I'm sure a lot of people noticed that the now when you go to pay your vendors, it has an auto feature, which is because QuickBooks fully integrated with Bill.com, and you could use that. And so now people have been a little unsettled about having to take those extra steps to actually write a check to a vendor versus using that feature. But I do like Bill.com in the aspect of the two-step approval process, which works good from my end and perspective of things. It also integrates with a software called HubDoc, which all of your vendors, you can give them your email address for HubDoc, and it will pull all of the those vendor bills in and go into the Bill.com, and it also integrates with QuickBooks. So all three of those softwares talk really nicely together. You could schedule payments. And for me, I like having a two-step approval process, especially when I'm paying clients' bills. I don't like to be the end-all be-all for paying their bills, because I don't know the intimate relationship that they have with their vendors on, did the product come in good? Is it bad? Is it being returned? And things like that.
Well, just from a process perspective too, like whoever creates the bill shouldn't be paying the bill.
Right.
Like, I mean, you have to protect your business when you do that. But yeah, I mean, not only does it have like the two-step approval process is really nice, where whoever's in charge signs off on what bills get paid, what vendors get paid, and removes that responsibility from the accountant or bookkeeper or whoever's entering in the bills. But two, it'll also auto generate a check that gets sent out. So that's also the next savings, where you don't have to no longer write a check. It'll just cut a check from your bank account.
Nice.
7 days, the vendor receives it. So if you're cutting a lot of checks a month, or you're just wanting to eliminate that manual process from your business, and it's completely cost effective. It's like $2 a check, and if you think about what you spend on a check, the time put in the check, the stamp, the envelope, blah 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 blah, you say it's cost effective to do it.
You could also do ACH, where it's half the price, and that will automatically send over. So let's say you were on your guys' fishing trip when you go and you needed to pay a vendor while you're out there. You can do it through here without having to have Pete come to the office to get a check, to write the check, to then give to the vendor. You could do it on the fly from anywhere.
Right. You whatever. You kicked off. I apologize.
Oh, all right. Well,
whatever. You must not have charged your battery or something. I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
I'm scared.
But I don't know. But yeah, we lost the screen. But yeah, so that's kind of Bill.com and how that works with giving you some vendor options and being able to to a lot of the softwares that we've gone over, well, the 3 that we've gone over so far, give you the option and the opportunity to not be stuck at your desk also when you're doing things. So with there being a lot of remote staff or people, or if you just have, like Rich mentioned, a sales team that's out in the field or in different states than you, or all of these various, situations that arise.
And or with the state of COVIDs right now, right? I mean, you got people working from home or whatever. This is a good way. The interesting thing is for a lot of small businesses, a lot of times you're really good at what you do, right? And we've talked about that on the show before, where I'm a good plumber and I know how to plumb, so I go out and start my own business. I'm not a good business person,
right?
So this is just a good way to be a good business person by, having this kind of infrastructure to make your job easier, so you can still go out and be a good plumber.
Yeah, it gets neglected a lot of times by people that know how to do the work but don't know how to do the back end. You know what I mean? So they don't voice customers like they go. Yeah, right. She never says that.
Hey, how are you? Hey.
All right, but like a lot of people know how to go out there and do the work, and I mean, this is a very common story amongst business owners that they go out there, do the work, but don't build the customer, or they build the customer, don't follow up. And they can't keep up with the business. They can keep up with the work, but they can't keep up with the business.
Well, then you end up you taking 3 days off to catch up or whatever.
Yeah, and you don't even want to do it. You hate doing it, and that's why it's not getting done.
Yep, that's cool.
So, and just to kind of play on Stephanie's point about Expensify, like if you do approve anything in Expensify, it automatically will move into Bill.com to get paid. Yeah. So if you were using that workflow,
that's cool. Yeah.
And then this is the final one I think that we have time to go over. This is kind of a cheat one for me as a bookkeeper.
I don't know why you're talking about this.
So let's say you have, 2 years worth of cleanup to do. Like, let's say you haven't done your taxes, you've kind of just stuck your head in the sand, and now the IRS finally sent you a letter saying, hey, we noticed that you've been in business for a couple of years, but we haven't seen any tax returns. So auto entry kind of lets you bring in all of those transactions into your QuickBooks using your bank statements. Because I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but you can only go so far back on your bank portal to pull in those your transaction history. I think the most I've seen is 18 months is that it's letting me go back. Some banks let you go back 3, some let you go back 9. So it just really kind of doesn't. So if you can get a good clear copy of your bank statements and you upload them into auto entry, it will pull out all of those transactions. And then from there, you can import them into QuickBooks using a CSV file like we went over in the first part of this whole 3-part series, or you can directly code them from here. But it only allows you to do it with banks. The credit card, you have to export to a CSV and upload into your QuickBooks. It does not let you code to a credit card through auto entry, just so everybody is aware of that. But that's just kind of a tool to kind of help and prepare yourself mentally instead of manually entering each transaction. Because for me as a bookkeeper, I could do about a 12-page bank statement in like an hour and 15-ish.
Wow.
So I don't know how long it takes the average person that doesn't do it all day, every day. But this was definitely a huge time saver, especially if you have an extensive cleanup to do in preparation for starting the year off right. And
bank feeds aren't perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're down to that last minute.
So yeah, so I don't know if anybody has any questions. I know that was a lot to take in. Ted, sorry that you missed part of the show. Hope you're feeling better. And yeah.
And of course, you can always catch Stephanie right here, the first and third Fridays at 3:30 on Ask a Bookkeeper. But check her out at www.stephsbooks.com. Send her an email if you have any questions. Here's the best way and the best thing you can do for your 2021 is send her an email at steph@stephsbooks.com, right there on the screen, PH at STEPHSbooks.com, and let her take care of your business so you can go out and work your business and make it thrive. And of course, thanks to the special guest, Rich Conley, and happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the Pabst Blue Ribbon. I can't even say
About
that
as good
without,
as it can get.
can't say that without laughing. as I'm drinking scotch over here.
I guess have a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
and
everybody,
we'll see
please.
you guys after that.